Hello everyone, this is Jim Okrzinski with your weekly lecture video. So this week I'm going to review a few things that I think are really important here. Right now I'm showing the discussion board number 9, exercise 1.5 on the screen. I'll come back to this later because I want to really explain and go through the steps that need to be completed for this discussion board for you to maximize points. Now, I'm going to do one other thing. I'm going to head over to the Curious Researcher it's a slide presentation. Each section 318, 319, you have a Curious Researcher slide presentation that I add to throughout our unit so far. Did it for the introduction. Here I've completed chapter 1, and I'm going to run through the chapter 1 slide presentation and talk a little bit lecture about the chapter and what you should be reading and focusing on to prepare you for a topic and discussion board number 9. Now, one thing I do want to remind everybody as we get into chapter 1 is to remind everybody the types of evidence: memory and experience, observation, reading, interview, going back to theories of intelligence. So as you're coming up with topics, for discussion board, and remember, once again, I'm going to keep saying this throughout the course, this research topic and this proposal is going to carry you through all the downstream assignments to the end of the semester. So it's important for you to have something that you have a vested interest in, something you can use memory and experience and even the sources and observation and interview and putting together. Usually it's the best topics are topics that students have some personal experience with. They feel more grounded to that topic. Some of the topics I'm reading, I can't figure out why some people want to write a history report or a profile essay about someone. I don't know what personal experience you might have with that. History reports are exactly that. When I say if you're writing about something in the past, it's going to be a history report unless you can figure out a way to give me some perspective that might allow for some personal experience. I'm not sure, but if I've raised an objection about your topic and say you're going to write me a report, be aware that's me warning you about your topic. So one of the items in the discussion board number 9 is that you have to provide me links to 2 or 3 soft sources just to show me that you've done some thinking and looking for source material. In other words, you're developing a working knowledge. So you're going to want to look at this section in the textbook about how to go about developing that working knowledge so you can write a better proposal. Also, research strategies for developing that working knowledge, looking at definitions, looking at people, looking at disciplines, some of the sources, Wikipedia. If you have to use it, it's fine for just the preliminary research to get your discussion board and your topic formulated. It's great. So this is on page 29. Take a look at the research strategies for developing a working knowledge. Then you get a chance to narrow the subject a little bit. Some of you have coming up with some pretty broad topics. What you want to do is look at a specific time or a place or a person, a way to narrow it, maybe a different aspect of your topic. If you're talking social media, well, there's so many social media sites out there. Narrow it. What is it? Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, whatever it may be, Reddit. Wherever people share it, you can consider social media. You have to be able to narrow that down to a platform or two and really a cause and effect, some sort of a problem solution. All right. So look at the crafting your opening inquiry question, and it'll come into play for the discussion board in a minute. But that is on page 34. I believe it is the top. Let me see here, get to my book. Yes, it is the top of page 35. Okay, crafting your opening. There's a table 1.2, I'm sorry, on the top of page 35. It gives you some templates. Use the templates in table 1.2 to help you craft your opening and inquiry question, right? So they talk about alternative methods of focusing your research project, possible purposes for a research assignment. Now this ties directly to discussion board number 9. I would read this section on page 37. Two major purposes: one to explore, one to argue, because I'm going to ask you when I come back to the discussion board again to give me a few sentences about what you would explore, a few sentences about what you want to argue about your topic. Two different perspectives. So please read that section on page 37. And then the book goes on to chapter 1 to talk about reading for research, which is always important to look at how to read. I think sometimes, it's an art form just to learn how to read for research. So you do it efficiently without taking a lot of time. You don't have to read all of the heavy academic articles. I list a bunch of ways here to explore them: reading the abstract, looking at the literature review, finding the thesis, look at some of the methodology, if there is some in there, how they conducted their particular study, what were the outcomes, look at the discussion portion of a scholarly article where they talk about their findings, and then ultimately the conclusion. So all of this is really critical in learning how to read an academic article. As we dive into chapter 2 going in the next week, what we'll do is we're going to come back to this to look at how to work through some of the source material. All right. So I just want to explain why the topic is important, because if we get to here, let me get to the discussion of the modules here. I've opened up the chapter 2 module. We start doing the research. The evaluative annotated bibliography. This is your next big assignment that is worth 20% of your course grade. And I urge everybody to please take the time to read this. I will go through with it in detail later as we move into chapter 2 next week, probably the topic of next week's lecture video. But I list the fact that you have to have 8 sources as a minimum here. You have to have really well constructed annotations. There is a page in the learning materials explaining what an annotation is. And then more importantly, I give you an example, the downstream assignment that you're going to need to look at. It's right in the file section. Here is an example of the annotated bibliography from last spring's class. So take a look at it. It conforms perfectly to the assignment. You can see as you scroll through and look at the size of the annotations and the sources, how this is organized, what the 3-part annotation looks like for each particular source. And if you were to run through this is roughly going to be about 6 pages. Also, it's going to be, I think it's in excess of about 2,500 or more words. So this is really what's expected for this particular assignment. So I just want to make everybody aware of the downstream assignment that the topic has to really yield. So take a look at the annotated bibliography. I think it would all come together as to why I'm insisting that you have a researchable and workable topic. So let me get back to the discussion boards. Let's get to discussion board 9. All right, begin first paragraph with your inquiry question, right out of the textbook. Then write a few sentences for each of the 2 purposes. A few sentences if you were going to explore, and a few sentences if you were going to argue, much like in the textbook, okay? Add another paragraph describing your prior beliefs, assumptions, and personal experiences with the topic. So for your initial post, strive for 300 to 350 words, include 2 to 3 soft sources to help you develop content. I don't require formal citation. I do want the links, the URLs that I can click through and look at your sources. So please do yourself a favor. My instructions here are clear. I will grade this according to you giving me the inquiry question, the explore and argue perspectives, and your personal beliefs and assumptions and experiences. And believe me, this does need to be 300 and 350 words, and your soft sources. Anything other than this that it varies or the structure is unclear, will just not earn full points on this. We're going to start sharpening the grading on some of these important discussion boards actually from here on out. So if you've already posted and you're not complying with the instructions here, I would suggest editing your initial post. All right. If you have any questions, please send me an email. Good luck.